Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Film Fights. Well, today we have a show and a film, but a film fight nonetheless. Okay, so here's some Star Wars trivia. Let's see if you can get these two questions right. I don't have any prizes to give you, but you get the pride of being smart. So, first question. What is one addition to the Star Wars franchise that is universally loved by the fans? Well, yeah, but that's not really what I'm looking for. I'll get there soon. The correct answer is Star Wars: The Clone Wars, a television series that debuted in 2008 and lasted all the way until 2014 with 5 main seasons and a shorter 6th Lost Missions season. As the name so brilliantly points out, yeah, the show is about the Clone Wars. It follows the missions and character arcs of many characters from the prequel trilogy, including some newcomers such as Anakin's Padawan Ahsoka, 501st's Captain Rex, and Dooku's apprentice, Ventress. So now, the opposite question. What part of Star Wars is despised by the fans? Okay, obviously it's the prequels. No need for jokes here. But if you answered EA's Battlefront 2 or Kathleen Kennedy, I'll still give you full credit. Before The Last Jedi, the Star Wars prequels were the most fun thing to hate on in cinematic history. And how could anyone not join in on the fun? They were filled to the brim with poorly written characters, a reliance on outdated CGI, over-the-top action sequences, and hilariously bad performances. Thanks Hayden Christensen for this gem.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. Not like here. Here everything is soft and smooth.
Oof, you can tell Padme is getting ready to tweet #MeToo. Huh. Me too, Padme. Me too. Anyways, both the Clone Wars and the prequels used many of the same ideas, same characters, same villains, same war, and same story. But even with similar premises, one is beloved by many, while the other is only good as a meme farm.
The Senate will decide your fate.
I am the Senate.
The Clone Wars is Obi-Wan's high ground to the prequels' burning Anakin. So what did this series do right where the films failed? Let's take a look. The Clone Wars didn't get its name for nothing. The greatest army the galaxy had ever seen, the driving force behind a galaxy-wide civil war spanning thousands of planets, and the pride of the Republic is the Clone Army. Jango Fett's clones, trained and bred on Kamino to become enhanced soldiers, carried the burden of this giant conflict as they went from planet to planet, pushing back and defending against the Separatists' droid army. Millions upon millions of these heroic soldiers fought and died in the seemingly endless conflict. So, how do the movies portray the clones? What is said about them? How do they feel about being born just to die for a cause they had no say in? Yeah, there's nothing. A long, cold nothing. All the millions of clones were just thrown in the background to serve as explosion fodder. There's never any focus or attention given at all to the men who carried the entire war effort on their shoulders. The only character in the prequels who was also a clone was Commander Cody, and even he only got less than a minute of screen time when he was introduced in episode 3. This treatment definitely dilutes the contrast between the clones and battle droids. Both were mass-produced for the purpose of fighting and dying in wars as a more disposable alternative to sending millions of civilians to their death. The droids are soulless, dumb robots, so who cares if they get blown to smithereens? But the clones are still real people with their own thoughts, emotions, and sense of camaraderie. They aren't mindless programmed robots, but think for themselves. The Clone Wars, on the other hand, certainly captures this in so many episodes as we watch Anakin's 501st Legion constantly run into big moral questions. In Season 2, we got the episode The Deserter. The story shows the conflict between an injured Captain Rex and a clone who's put the war behind him to work a farm and start a family. The question arises whether the clones have the right to determine the course of their own lives, or can they only serve the purpose for which they were bred. In Season 4, there's a 4-part arc where the 501st Legion are given a temporary general while Anakin's away, General Krell. These episodes really focus on that clone-droid contrast as I described. Krell is a ruthless tactician who deals with every problem by just chucking more men at it without any concern for the massive casualties. Captain Rex and his men begin arguing over whether or not to mutiny because of it. What comes first, the responsibility for your government and leaders, or that to your brothers? Where does one end and the other begin? It's kind of disappointing that Krell was revealed to be an evil mastermind in the end, because it robs the intrigue of the morally grey areas of war and paints it as black and white, but I digress. These big ideas of identity, responsibility, and humanity come up constantly in the Clone Wars, as they have to prove time and time again that they are more than just clones, but actual people.
I'm sorry, I cannot just follow orders when I know they're wrong. Especially when lives are at stake. You will if you support the system we fight for. I do support it. I do. But I am not just another number. None of us are.
Instead of moments like that, the films decide to focus on more of this. So the bland, disposable clones from the films end up becoming the best part of the series. Quite possibly, the biggest problem with the Star Wars prequels was their massive amounts of potential to explore interesting ideas. This is something we'll see come up constantly. We just saw this with the clone troopers, but this also applies to the Jedi. The Jedi Order were meant to be the keepers of peace across the galaxy. They used their wisdom and connection to the Force to settle disputes, conflicts, and prevent armies from pillaging different systems, like in the Mandalorian Wars. But in the Clone Wars, I mean the war itself, not the show, the Jedi tied themselves to the Galactic Republic and its corrupt Senate. Instead of trying to keep the peace between the Republic and the CIS, they just completely threw their hats in with the Republic. Monks literally became generals overnight, waging war against countless worlds in order to snuff out the Separatists. This radical shift was never explored at all in episodes 2 and 3. We didn't get to see any Jedi fighting this change or any civilians arguing against this. There were no moments where the Jedi were proven to be incapable military leaders, and no Jedi decided to side with the Separatists, only the evil Sith. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The Star Wars prequels tried too hard to make the Jedi look like the good guys because they're more marketable that way, making the war a black and white conflict, so no questions or valid arguments are ever raised against them. Star Wars The Clone Wars once again takes the missed potential of the prequels and brings these ideas to the forefront. Many times, the actions of the Jedi are taken into question by different characters. Even one of the Order's own Padawans, Barriss Offee, bombed the temple in opposition to Jedi involvement in the Clone Wars. We also see Ahsoka fail as a leader because she's still just a kid. She isn't a master tactician with years of experience. The Jedi are literally giving teenagers command over the Republic army. It's nonsensical. To be fair to Episode 3, the poor decisions of the Jedi do weaken the Order and make them easy targets for their troops during Order 66. But again, this good idea isn't developed to the point where it seems like a criticism. It comes across as more of a sad inconvenience. So I hope Season 7 of the Clone Wars ends with Order 66 and makes that better too. Then we'll get to see how the individual clones react to such a crazy mission, and perhaps the Jedi begin to realize their grave mistakes. Well, for the few seconds they're still alive. Rip the younglings. Before I move on, let's get this point out of the way.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
What? How can you do this?
This is outrageous. It's unfair. How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
Our main protagonist in episodes 2 and 3 is an annoying, bratty, creepy, stalkery, and whiny sociopath. Then, with the exception of Ewan McGregor's performance as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn, all the other Jedi are just boring monks who sit around in meetings about the droid attack on the Wookiees. So for all the fans who waited decades to see the Jedi in their prime, you got screwed, sorry. In the Clone Wars, Anakin certainly still had his moments, especially with Padme's ex Clovis, but for the most part, he's far more chill. He's not a nag who commits genocide, but more of a spontaneous thinker, willing to bend the rules every now and then in order to achieve victory. It's a huge difference. He, and especially Ahsoka, learn morals throughout the different arcs, like learning to not make attachments, listening to leadership, and so on. But they never act out this badly that they become unlikable. He's unorthodox, which is how he should have been in the films, but nah, let's go all out. Genocidal maniac.
And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too. They're like animals, and I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them.
Probably everyone's favorite things about The Phantom Menace are Duel of Fates, Liam Neeson, and of course, Darth Maul. Just his appearance alone is so menacing, or should I say, phantom menacing.
Just stop! Just stop it! Stop! No! Just stop it!
He's got all those cool moves, and that double-bladed lightsaber. Oof, that guy's awesome. But everything awesome about him is just on the exterior. He looked like a good villain, but nothing was ever done with him. He got 2 fights, one being short-lived, and like 2 sentences of dialogue, but we never learned anything about him. General Grievous received poor treatment as well. This robot lizard monster thing only appeared in the first half of Revenge of the Sith, being introduced and killed off in rapid succession. Even Count Dooku didn't receive much attention himself, so villains were introduced and killed off before we began to care about them. Almost like the Marvel movies. Got 'em. Well, by now, you know what I'm about to say. This gets fixed in the Clone Wars. Dooku, Grievous, and Maul are back, and cooler than ever. I mean, I love Christopher Lee, but come on, it's the prequels. Dooku has so much more of a presence as he leads the Separatists and viciously deals with anyone who stands in his way. Here, he's far, far darker than his almost goofy film counterpart. Grievous is still his old lung cancer self, but with far more screen time. But Darth Maul is the big ticket winner here, getting a total reworking after his encounter with Obi-Wan on Naboo. He's got these robot legs, he talks a lot more, and he becomes drunk with power. I also like his dynamic with Obi-Wan. Kenobi wants payback for him killing Qui-Gon, but Maul wants revenge on him for killing his ability to poop. So there's a lot of drama and tension between the two. Not only does he get his revenge on Obi-Wan by killing his bae, the Queen of Mandalore, but he declares himself the true Sith Lord, leading to the greatest spanking I've ever seen when Sidious arrives. Although I think they should have kept the silent type thing going, it's nice to see someone finally do something with such a previously wasted character. He goes from disposable apprentice to ruler of double shrekking Mandalore. The Clone Wars also introduces some great new antagonists too, like Dooku's apprentice Ventress, Darth Maul's brother Savage, bounty hunter Cad Bane, the anti-hero pirate Hondo, and Death Watch. Every main villain is just awesome to watch and bleed personality. Of course, how can I talk about the Clone Wars without discussing how both works tackled the Clone Wars? One thing that really annoys me in the prequels is how black and white the war is made to look. Republic good, CIS bad. All the good guys are fighting for the Republic, and all the bad guys are with the Separatists. No argument is ever given in favor of the CIS. It's just a one-sided, they stink and I don't like them. The opening crawl for episode 3 even said there are heroes on both sides, when that simply wasn't the case. If it was, we would have gotten a far more interesting movie. Imagine if a number of Jedi left the Order to go help the Separatists. That would have been an amazing conflict. further emphasizing the stupidity of the Jedi Order for going all in with the Republic. However, I do appreciate Palpatine's rise to power, and how him and Tyrannus were orchestrating the war in order for him to grow in power until a galactic empire was reached.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
Congrats guys, at least you did something right. But the Clone Wars does this too, and better. One of Ahsoka's arcs in the episode named, funny enough, Heroes on Both Sides, is her learning that not all separatists were disgusting evil slime bags, that there are still good people fighting for the independence movement. It's a nice attempt to patch this problem, but doesn't go very far when you consider that many episodes are about good guys wiping out the bad CIS. Maybe we could have truly seen heroes on both sides, but I'll take what I can get. Good enough, Clone Wars. Good enough. If you're someone who doesn't like episodes 1, 2, and 3, maybe you were turned off to the idea of the Clone Wars from the very beginning. I mean, it has Anakin in it. I can't blame you.
It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's jealous. He's holding me back.
Oh, the cringe. Oh, the cringe. But all the major problems with the trilogy are totally or mostly done away with, or better yet, become the best parts. No more whiny brat characters. Nah, all the protagonists are likable, even if they are still flawed because they're human beings, not boring monks or genocidal maniacs. So many morally gray areas of war are brought up and explored in different arcs. The black and whiteness of the conflict is mostly gone. Villains are intimidating, interesting, have unique goals and motivations, and my gosh, the clone troopers totally steal the show. Every arc about the 501st, Rex, and Fives is just masterfully done. Is Star Wars The Clone Wars perfect? Of course not, but you have to give them credit where credit is due. This show took so many poorly handled ideas from the Star Wars prequels and executed them almost as excellently as the clones executed Order 66. It is certainly one of my favorite shows. Now, let's hope Season 7 hits it out of the park with the termination of the Jedi. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to please leave a like and subscribe. See you next week.